Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, trannies and dykes, we will be reviewing the Beast of the Mesozoic T-Rex, a highly anticipated figure that I've been waiting a whole year for. As everyone drools over this guy, I've decided to take matters in my own hands and actually criticize something properly for once. Now, is this thing all that's made up to be? Let's find out. As an avid paleo nerd that tends to keep up with an arbitrary amount of studies, papers, and other sources of scientific mediums and documentation, I'd say with the utmost confidence that the individual that David outsourced the sculpting to did a marvelous job. Truly outstanding work. Every wrinkle can be seen, every scale has variation, especially within the facial integument and avian ankles of the sculpt. The osteoderms are keratin-like keratin-like layering. Apologies, I had a stroke there. Is a bit modest at best, if I might add. What do I mean by this? Well, around the nasal part of the skull, the keratin buildup seems as if it's more akin to eye boogers or crust around the lacrimal crest, the post-orbital region, if you will. It's just solid bone. I get it. Now, I know what you might say. What are you talking about, Saul? That's how T-Rex anatomy is. The sculptor did a great job. You're just a JP apologist fanboy, no regard to science. Okay, first of all, butt nugget, I wished for a more creative and speculative approach, something that would get me admiring it even more. Some of the biggest reasons why I love the original JP T-Rex model / animatronic is because the design team behind it were paleontologists and experts. Their creativity did not need to be hindered by scientific limitations. For example, one of the biggest reasons why birds of prey look so angry all the time is because they lack facial muscles, and our pattern-seeking brain interprets them as having angry emotions. It is actually because in actuality, mind you, they possess a facial ridge, which is called the suborbital ridge. It is used for shading the eyes and for more of a streamlined visual locking approach so they can hunt their prey. That's why they look stern, especially how some birds have their feathers positioned in a way akin to facial exaggeration, and masks within comic books to indicate emotion, even though like muscles cannot penetrate such material to indicate expression of emotion. But that's all I gotta say for the original JP T-Rex. It was originally based off the specimen, the AMNH5027. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and go full-blown analysis for why the JP T-Rex is it still holds up as an outdated but regardless a scientifically valid representation of the animal, although it is theatrically exaggerated. I will link a forum post about a soy-cooked paleo consumer who got dunked on by some guy in his comments who did a literary analysis regarding the head, overall skeletal of the animal, excluding the pubic bone, arm positioning, and nonetheless, it's a good read. I apologize for rambling. And to wrap it up, no, I don't necessarily want angry-looking T-Rex. I just wish it wasn't derpy-looking. It looks derpy. There's no denying it. It's not derpy. It's intimidating. You'd shit your pants if it was stalking you, I hear you say. Okay, first of all, anything that big at all is intimidating, regardless. Bears, moose, caribou, wolves, modern-day animals, herbivorous and or carnivorous, are equally dangerous for our well-being. We get intimidated by geese alone. Yes, we can easily kill them. Other animals like horses can demolish these fuckers as well. But you can't kill a moose, bear, and the examples you mentioned, yes, they still pose a danger to you.
Shut up, bitch!
Correct. I never claimed that when something is derpy, it means it's harmless. That doesn't necessarily equate. You're committing a false equivalency. That doesn't necessarily mean that. I'm just arguing how goofy and silly it looks in retrospect. It reminds me of the what's scarier, feathered or featherless debate. I'd say fucking both, because who cares? It could kill you. If something has the capacity to end your life, you should be reasonably afraid. Regardless of size, people are afraid of rabid raccoons and foxes, yet you could reasonably stomp the fuckers. It just doesn't happen, so I'd say shut the fuck up! Here, let me post some pictures of some of my quote-unquote paleo illustrations, if you will. And I wish, and they were just something I wish David's silly little guy would have turned out. Additionally, on a side note, I'd like to go on a little side tangent for those in the audience who purchased the original 1/18th Triceratops. Don't you remember how time and time again delays would occur with our favorite little football turtle, only for it to come back on an oddly specific day, and David posted that bitch on his Kickstarter community post? Quote, in addition to adding these to our inventory, the warehouse staff has been inspecting each one for broken feet by checking them in advance. This should help to reduce the problem for backers substantially regarding the broken feet issue. So in my opinion, I have no idea why I didn't say end quote. Sorry for fucking that up. But regardless, that was a fucking lie. That was a fucking lie. I have trust issues because of David. Hey, I get it. Mistakes happen. I'm also somewhat referring to this in a joking manner. I'm not going to protest or march and say that you shouldn't buy from him, because if my credit card statement, and I want you to listen to me very closely right now, if my credit card statement ever got leaked to any capacity, I'd be deemed a hypocrite. But how is this relevant to any sculpt? How is this relevant to anything, you bumbling, rambling idiot? I hear you say. This is a T-Rex video, not a Triceratops review, I hear you say. I demand a T-Rex video. Well, I got the trike. Patiently waiting. I got it with a broken foot. I get it. Yeah, to probably lie. To try to get these things shipped as possible, considering the constant delays. Once the figure came broken, contacted customer support ASAP, automatically shipped the new leg. Wonderful service. I'm not going to complain there. So when I got both the 1/35th and 1/18th scale T-Rex, I remember following the Backer Kit blog to see the status of my little red sausages. I remember vividly where there was mold adjustments. That's right, mold adjustments to try to make the mouth completely flush. According to the post for the Wave 1 tooling, mind you, I have this bitch screenshotted. Quote, one of the most challenging issues that has come up while developing these figures has surprisingly been getting the mouths to close completely. It was very important to me that the mouth could be closed, as I'd shown previously with the fine cut figures. I even used a photo of this on the back of the packaging, but the injection mold tests shown were unable to achieve this. The adjusted 1/35th scale head and the updated 1/18th version. This was a much more complicated one to fix. So I'll be fair and say this. I'm sure you can see where this is going. My 1/35th scale baby boy has his mouth completely flush, and his 1/18th counterpart kinda doesn't. As evident by the previous prototype image for the 1/18th, the mouth isn't closed all the way, which is evident by my copy, but I really don't mind. I don't mind something snarling, as, he has a problem with it for some reason. I wanted to point something out which was just a little strange on my part. Does anyone else have this sort of thing, or is it just me? Because I feel like a schizophrenic over here. So please, let me know in the comments if it's possible. Now, let's continue with the details. If you look at the roof of the mouth of the beast, the cavity, the roof mouth, the fucking thing, dude, has good detail. That most dinosaur toys fail to be sculpted with. Nasal passageways. The mouth has a very pinkish, slimy, glossy interior. As it should, no complaints there, but the teeth I'm a little disappointed by. I wish they were much larger, more bone crushing. On my 1/18th copy, oops, I slapped the mic. On my 1/18th copy, the teeth were molded weirdly when you try to close said mouth. They would bend. That is a design error. It would have been better if the teeth were larger, oriented within clearance to avoid this issue of bending. The teeth are prickly and small, not appropriate for a T-Rex, but hey, we could argue it's a particular specimen, so I guess it's a nitpick. The teeth issue regarding bending should be addressed though. Moving around the body, you can see the scales. That's about it. Look at this fat boy, this chunker, this heckin' Reddit chunker, this fucking lad. I really don't want to spend an unspecified amount of time as you hear me breathing intensely in the background, as you see the footage of me rolling a piece of plastic on camera. This is not Andy's Toy Reviews. I care about your wallet. Let's go to the drumsticks. Man, I do admire these meaty thighs. This boy, this lad, I need to know his skincare routine. Dead ass. You need to understand. The Tyrannosaur waves will always have two pairs of legs. Stiff legs with no articulation designed to stand the toy without the base, and articulated legs are designed to be, well, articulated. Well, what do you expect? But we'll get to that. We'll get to them shortly. And the tail, while disconnected out of the box, it looks like a carrot. Scales everywhere. Take a look. I'll stay silent and cut my neck, beard, breathing so you can see the product made in all of its brilliant soy factory fucking sweatshop brilliant glory. Scales and wrinkles properly distributed. 3 segments, 3 to 2 ball joints, and a bendy wire. I'm going to go back to the legs again because the avian feet are what get me. I love these feet, bro. Almost, it's like I'm this close to having a foot fetish. fetish. Very ostrich and cassowary-like. Very avian. I'm sorry for talking like Donald Trump. It's very instinctual. They're not as reptilian as I wanted, but since these fuckers are coelursaurian in nature, I won't cry about it too much. Let's see. I respect the design decision, but I'm more fascinated with the larger scales here. They're not as excessive, up to the ankles, yes, as I thought it would be, which makes me happy, mind you, because when I take inspirations for my paleo art, I'm too lazy. I have zero patience for drawing details, so this gives me an excuse to not spend as much time on my paleo art. So I hope you guys understand with my flat ass dinosaur drawings. The color scheme is based off the earless monitor lizard, or I should have said they inspired by the earless monitor lizard. It is inspired. Words are important. Because this reptile is only 2 colors, I would have been fine with beige and reddish browns as a modest color scheme, but knowing David, he'll do everything in his power to artificially drive the cost of these fuckers in the name of creativity. But to be positive for once, I do love the color scheme. The reddish-orange color scheme is very welcoming and pleasing to the eye. Not once do I feel insulted like his previous Ceratopsian color schemes. Nothing feels too over-designed or busy. The spots and hints of cream like later colors that are present across bits of the face, underbelly, undertail, and streamline around the neck. Of course, his soft, later shades is also around the legs as well, but it's not as prominent. There's also this hint of pearlescent green on the sides of the stomach. I think I'm going crazy, but it's just me. To make it more reflective in a way, the previously mentioned reddish-orange beautifully contrasts the beige as it gets covered with the darker black. I would have liked it more if the black was more dry brushed in terms of transitioning, rather than having stripes and markings. The color scheme of this figure complements the sculpt at times, but unfortunately it gets frequently distributed by the strange contrast of markings. I wanted to touch back at the wrinkles for this guy. The throat wrinkles are ugly and are just generally unnerving, akin to a swollen nutsack. It's kind of hard to admire something that looks like it's hard to admire something that looks like it came from a gender reassignment surgery. I am so sorry if that offended you. I am not your mom. There's a fucking cookie somewhere. Go fuck yourself. I'll be using the 1/35th scale version of this bitch because I refuse to touch its larger counterpart due to how cumbersome and heavy it is. I know what I signed up for, but I refuse to wrestle with a camera to try to show you what I've done. I don't have a studio. I have a bedroom, okay? Let's start off with the gripes. Holy shit, the neck is just a single dumbbell piece, a single ball joint, a dumbbell piece. I've watched Andycuckreviews after I made my purchase, so why didn't I cancel a thing if I was so distraught? Well, you see, I wanted to see what the figure was like in my hands before I could have a proper consensus, and I gotta say it was pretty disappointing, especially for a figure. I'm referring to the 35th scale, by the way. The $75. I know I wasn't expecting SH levels of articulation, but man, I cannot stress how disappointing it was. I thought what the fucking thing that Andy reviewed were prototype samples for later revisions. But no, those were the final products. Truly devastating. A fucking biggest loss in gaming history. I thought the amount of excess wrinkles were ingeniously hiding the 2 neck piece segments to give it more range of articulation. But no, nothing like the Ceratopsians. And it isn't possible or difficult even. Here, look at this. Do you see the literal red line I put? He could have done that with the sculpt. Still not convinced? Okay, check this out. I made a blueprint. Or for you who like to use big words, a schematic, to show it isn't difficult or impossible. Pardon me. I didn't make the neck longer to any capacity. I took inspiration from his original works and from other paleo art to make a T-Rex blueprint for proper articulation. It is possible. It is possible. There are no excuses. This is unacceptable, especially for the price range this sort of fucking toy asks for. Not even mentioning the 1/18th, which is like 260 or 40, God forbid. It is especially deceptive when you know the foreskin neck color just hides it. The fact every time you try to move the head, it breaks off. I'm making the sculpt break, and it looks uncomfortable. I'm not sure if the McFlaren aspect of him is making the decision, but a figure is supposed to be a blend, an even blend of respectable compromises. A figure is supposed to have modest or good articulation as it complements the sculpt. There shouldn't be one side favoring the other because that would create an imbalance. You have to understand my complaints, right? My complaints are not me, right? They're not me being rough with the figure I handle. Like, I handle the figure with respect, with care. Yet, I feel as if certain things forbid me from like making it look even down, dude. You can technically do it, but I won't push it to risk to risk breakage, like to any degree. But it could look up. Yay. Man.
So after discovering that the foreskin could be taken off, I decided to, here's the discovery. Check this out. Obviously, it's a single ball joint, as I claimed earlier with the pictures, but it's more, there's more evidence to it. You can see it much more clearly now. And holy shit, he can move much easier without this restricting him. This fucking femboy collar shit. This BDSM little ass shit going on. I don't like this. Okay? And even with a single ball joint, he could look down. He could look kinda down, okay? But he's not like He's not like this little fucking shit. It's not stopping him. Okay? He can look up so much better, look down so much better, and he can look left and right, side to side much better without the restriction of this shit. What the fuck are you doing, David?
Okay, let's move on a bit to the jaws. The jaws can open, but not as wide as I wanted. I wanted, I don't want a YouTube thumbnail gap or gape or maw. I wanted to, granted, if they open 90 degrees, that would be too excessive. It would have been better if they were open, if they had the capability of opening a bit wider. I know why you can't, because the wrinkle sac obstructs clearance. This is another case of the sculpt obstructing articulation, hindering it. Disappointing. The torso, kind of respectable. Has the capacity to move. It's on a dumbbell joint from the torso, thigh, and tail points. Using this will give the toy the capacity to look down, but it looks constipated. The legs are not bad. The expected hinge joint swivels as well. On a side note, these legs are painted within the inside of the joints themselves, which therefore, once the paint dries, it causes the figure to have to possess complications and lead to potential breakage when someone tries to move it or generally deal with it with or without heat. That's a quality control problem right there. The tail is on a ball joint. It breaks the sculpt anytime you try to move it. It looks ugly, so I just try to move it subtly to give it the illusion of fluidity. If you guys were following the socials or generally, followed the news like me, David blocked me from seeing his stuff ever again because I called out Andy as being his little tool that gives very brief or limited constructive criticism. He didn't take it too kindly. As you know, the Tyrannosaur series, according to all species having feet that are raised, possess raised toes that are bending in the process, or walking, and stationary non-articulated feet, they could be placed if you don't want to use the articulated variants, of course. Interestingly, the stationary feet don't need base stands, as previously mentioned. This is a huge improvement over the awful 1/6 scale Raptor series he did. By awful, I mean everything is good, but the feet, which were horribly designed, brought the Raptors down and hindered them from being seen as good figures in my eyes. Some of the biggest gripes I will ever have is that the toes, quote unquote toes, are so small, sharp, and once you get them, oh my God, once you get them on, God help you, they become loose. When you try to adjust them, you get stabbed. Also, the feet look like athletes running prosthetics. Truly a shame, David. What are you doing? But back to the Tyrannosaur series, you'd get a base with a metal rod sticking out, out of the base. Once you have your stationary legs placed position, you will notice said feet have holes where you could securely place the rods in there to avoid figures from falling over. But with these feet, they could stand without the stand. Something I wish the Raptors had better. More spread out toes within their feet so they could have their fall where they could fucking rod could be placed. For the larger, much bigger 1/18 Tyrannosaurs, you get a stand that could split, which is something you may want to do if you plan on doing more diverse poses. But again, the poses you can do without breaking the sculpt. The sculpt is indeed, limiting, as you know it. It's just a balancing act at the end of the day. Also, I'm not sure if you count the box as an accessory or is it packaging. I don't know. But, both scales come with the exact same cards, so you're not really missing out much. Looking on the back, you see the other figures for Wave 1. You see the two Rexes, which I have right now. The Juvenile Rex, Guanalong, Tyrannosaurus, and the 1/6 scale D-Long, which I'll purposely miss out on regardless. This is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool starting roster regardless. You get facts regarding the Cretaceous Titan, descriptions, etc. Flip it to the bottom, and you'll see those who were contributed to the project. And I'm glad this is a detail, Pardon me. Good to see everyone getting credit. The packaging is much more appealing compared to the previous waves, rather than having a weird banner that slides off like a large fucking bookmark. You get the art within the package. Size comparison. To show an upcoming rival with a much better, dare I say, superior articulation, the Hammond Collection T-Rex. Anything that Mattel sculpts is disappointing and underwhelming. Their goofy cartoon style / aesthetic is lethargic and I hate it. That also concludes the clown feet. Disproportionately absurd anatomy, cho tails, and blunt everything. But the Hammond Collection Rex literally rivals this bitch. Here's the 1/18th and the 1/35th scale respectively. Here's the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus, some beasts of the Mesozoic figures such as the Triceratops, Utaceratops, and Avaceratops. Here's the Mattel's Amphilosaurus, Dreadnoughtus, and Apatosaurus. I don't know why the fuck you would want to compare them. Diabloceratops and the Gorgosaurus from the One Closeted Furry Dino documentary. I hope you got a general consensus for this bastard's size. He isn't a pushover when it comes to the size department. At this point of the review, I am not really sure for the $240 plus shipping and handling, which in turn will result in $260 and $300. I can't tell you if it would have been worth it if it was a bit bigger, so a piece of me would have had some sort of copium, but I digress. Now, to wrap it up, I'm not here to bash anyone for having different opinions, but what do I have a problem with? Is that when very little constructive criticism is brought into the fucking light because you choose to sacrifice your integrity for benefits, I don't sit well with that. I believe rightfully. So when I pay for a product, I must acknowledge its flaws. Meaning I can't constantly alienate my fucking audience just because I want to emphasize that I have disposable income. Not everyone has such a luxury. But quite frankly, paying for a very mundane statue isn't gonna give me joy to most people. But to each their own. Hey, you're a Funko Pop collector? I get it. Ask your wife's boyfriend for permission. I am not here to give you whatever, bro. I prefer to descend to the audience-based approach, understanding demographics and situations, right? I don't want things to be just consumers, because if someone truly wants to buy a piece of the Mesozoic figure, they need to know its flaws, its limitation, what makes it great, the things that aren't cheap, and I have, oh my god, I beat the fucking bike again, kill me, and I have my own reasons to suggest why they shouldn't be priced as much. But if you truly, and I mean this with my fucking dad's left nut, if you truly want a scientifically accurate T-Rex toy that is proportional and has decent articulation, I almost spit on my mic, I swear to God, then I recommend getting the 1/38 scale due to how easy it is to handle and it isn't cumbersome. When I try to pose it, $75 plus is not exactly a fair price, so I suggest getting the unpainted variant. If you truly want something that suits your fancy, if you want something that you choose your color scheme, it's your world, and I'm just living in it. I'm just that one guy in the background of every fucking family photo. Don't ask, bro. Again, your money, your rules. If you think you could dish out $240 plus, then more power to you. Collecting is supposed to be a hobby, not an investment. The reason some people got into collecting in the first place is an intrinsic affordability. Now we hear you say the reason the figures are so expensive is due to the following: superior sculpt, detailing, durable quality paint and model, and modest articulation and scientific accuracy. But I don't sit well with that. I'm sorry, I am not convinced. You may cite this as an example, for why the toys are expensive, but in actuality, they're mostly for the creation of the new molds, tooling, Kickstarter fees, and general fulfillment for state tax or fees. It's a production of a new factory, a new line, if you will, okay? I may be wrong entirely, and I'm looking at this from all wrong when it comes to the justification of each product. I'm curious about the manufacturing cost per unit compared to the actual sale markdown, since most of these things are imported from fucking China for the sake of the low production cost and low cost labor, which raises several questions. Now, I know when it comes to I know it comes down to the phrases, it varies, but my concern is that people don't realize David owns a monopoly of sorts. He is predominant and he is so predominant only in a bare niche part of the market. He's the only one that has a business which sells scientifically accurate toys. No one else does. The indie creators who charge $500 for a more amateur resin figure are huffing their own butt cheeks, even worse than David Sylvia. I will always be proud of a supporter for ethical competition. Noticing my wording, notice my wording very well. I want you to fucking not be dishonest with me, because I expect many people to strawman when the opportunity comes. Competition is healthy and worthwhile for a flourishing market. I want to have variety when it comes to what I want to buy. And to be honest, David's 1/18 scale T-Rex should have been $118 or below at least. Currently, I am part of the business. You know, I'm currently part of a business, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to disclose what I do per se. It's not meth. It's not drugs. Totally not drugs. But the point is, something fishy. Something is fishy. I'm not accusing David of being a grifter, fraud, or anything as such. I merely am expressing opinion that he takes himself way too seriously. Additionally, I don't understand the arguments. We live in an age of technological advancement where modeling tools or 3D modeling programs exist. The technology exists and is abundant. The techniques required to produce such things are not as hard, or arguably they're becoming easier as they were compared to previous decades. Hey, it still takes time. I get it. It takes resources to make a project get off the ground. But what I'm saying is that the techniques or technologies required in the past wasn't commercially or easily available, to which things would have been expensive. But it isn't the case today. Some small companies have it worse than who have disposable millions. I could see that perhaps there's an argument to be made. Please understand, this isn't some grand expose. Okay, this is a fucking toy review. All I'm saying is that it's possible to have high quality products that is at a decent price. So in conclusion, I give this whole fucking clusterfuck of a toy a 7 out of 10.
How does that work?
The sculpting is great, with respectable detail complementing it. The color scheme is vibrant, not insulting, and the articulation is disappointing for what it demonstrates. It is of course plausible, but of course I'm waiting for the debunkers to prove me wrong. Even though I didn't necessarily accuse anyone of anything, merely demonstrating skepticism, but to each their own. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Had a laugh, and stay safe. Please, sweatshop worker, Chinese boy in the background, do not sneeze again, or I will fucking decompose you in front of your parents. I am not kidding.